Welcome, one and all. My name is Jason Davis, and this is Empower Volusia Common Sense. And I'm coming to you from an undisclosed location hidden in the western highlands of Volusia County, Florida. We are hidden in an iron bunker, hermetically sealed for my protection, of course. And we're guarded by 2 rabid Pomeranians and 1 crazy cat, and there you go. That's how we open the show. Well, today's date, November 8, 2020. And the 2020 presidential election continues. What? Yes, the 2020 presidential election continues. A constant inundation of counts, recounts, sweeping of states, flipping of states. It's enough to give you a headache. And it's been going on now for 5 days. Both candidates have said that this is the most important election in the history of the country, and I do agree with them on that statement. But you know, it's not for the same reason that you may think. Though.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Let me preface this by letting you know I'm a very open-minded conservative. Basically, you could call me middle of the road. During my time in elected office, sometimes I sided with the Democrats, and sometimes I sided with the Republicans. But you know what? If they made sense on their opinion, that's the way you need to go, folks. So most of the time it was conservatives, but a lot of times it was Democrats. So with all that said, I don't know. I don't want you to think that I'm all one-sided or the other. So that's just that. So today we're sitting back and everybody's waiting with anticipation, with bated breath, as we shall say, for the next 30 days plus, to go to see who will be the president of the United States. For you see, the API, ABC, NBC, CBS, and even Fox, none of these news medias appoint a president, folks. Let me say that again, slower. None of the news media appoint a president. None of them. Their idea, their whole job is just to report the facts, not to make it up, not to choose a winner or a loser. They are supposed to tell you how many votes Trump has, how many votes Biden has. That's the way it is. They're not supposed to call races. They are violating their own, well, the First Amendment, really.
I'm as stupid as stupid does.
That's right. You know, this is done through the electoral process, which is what we're going through right at this very minute. Though they may have been tabulated, votes are ready and such, now the legal part of the election goes through, which, by the way, happens almost every election. In December, the Electoral College will either elect a president or, if there is some sort of chicanery going on in our electoral system, it will be referred to the Supreme Court, and they will appoint a president. They will choose. Just a little side note on that particular subject matter. That's why the Republicans needed to have the 9th Supreme Court judge. See, there was an investigation into the mail-in ballots, and I do mean only the mass mail-in ballots, not the normal ones. The ones that they sent out through many of the states of the Union, you know, the millions and millions of them. These do not include, you know, they weren't requested. They were not requested. And the Congressional Oversight Committee involved in elections said this situation would be and probably will be fraught with election fraud. There will be rampant fraud on our election because of this. That was done early in September. And Ms. Barrett was appointed to the Supreme Court in October. Now, the 9 Supreme Court justices will be needed for this election. Otherwise, there will be a 4-4 vote as to who is the president of the United States and who it would be. In the event of a 4-4 split, then Congress would choose our president. We all know how that would go. Not very fair or unbiased. For you see, our elected officials are not only not totally stupid as to what the other party is doing. That's why Jim Jordan instituted the investigation into those ballots. That's right. He did that because he said, this doesn't sound right. This could be a problem. And he did. And that was the information. He came up and he released that information. One party is doing their best not to allow most of our sacred rights to be mocked and destroyed and basically considered invalid. And voting is one of our most sacred rights. For you see, my friend, if I was going to destroy democracy, I would do it in a fashion that was well thought out and well planned too. My plan would have started 4 years ago after the election of a president that I didn't like. A president that would not do as I said he should do, but did what the people said. How dare he? But that was if I was so inclined. I would inundate the news media with scandals of corruption and foreign interference in our election process. I would make false claims and hide information to keep bringing the shadow of doubt over a duly elected president. I would consume every citizen's mind in the nation with the question of, did we elect the right man? That's what the question would be. I would use a term called truthification. This is an action. It is a verb. Yes, it is. And it is the act of releasing false information quietly to news media. Then letting the news media report it as if it were fact, then picking it up myself and saying the news media is reporting on this, so it must be true. Therefore, I made it true through truthification. I would push the narrative that this inexperienced politician has no idea on how to fix health care, and I would make sure the fear of not having health care is prevalent in everyone's mind. I would then incorporate a pandemic into the situation. Once again, this man has no idea how to take care of health of a nation. I would push that narrative through every mainstream media outlet. Then I would let all of my followers know that this man will destroy the nation by this pandemic, by lack of doing anything. You know, I do believe it was one of our former presidents, Mr. Obama, who said we should never let a good pandemic go to waste. Well, maybe he didn't say it, but it sounds like something he did, and I know someone did. I would then go to my like-minded compadres, leaders of states and cities and counties that thought the same way that I did. We've got to get rid of this president. I would support organizations with them that riot and destroy cities and governments and defund police and firemen and ambulance drivers and put all their lives in jeopardy because we must get rid of this guy. It's not so much if, but when he offers to help to control these riots, my compadres must tell him, no, we have them under control because we do. We started them, we fund them, we tell them what to do and where to go, and they do it. As that political sleight of hand is going around and widespread rioting and protests are going on across the nation and people are hanging around with each other, not social distancing, and they are starting to contract COVID. When they arrive at the hospital because they have this virus, COVID-19, they're asked, where have you been? We tell them they must say, I've been to this opponent's rally, or I've been at one of his meetings, or I've been at one of their clubhouses. But they must never tell the truth and say they were out there in the riots or protesting without a mask. I would then allow the exaggerated numbers of this disease to be reported of this widespread pandemic. It must be reported as it goes across the country, and I would push that narrative to my friends in the mainstream media so that they can push the negative narrative, constantly negative news. Then, while everybody is watching all of that stuff that I put in play, I would be bringing in those investigations into the president, impeachment of the president, another investigation of that president, another investigation into the president, perpetuating the cloud of gloom and doom hanging over the White House. And when the widespread panic becomes, because of a virus is loose in our nation, we must quarantine ourselves and businesses. Businesses are being shut down because of the widespread panic. And because our economy is starting to take a hit because, well, let's be realistic, nobody's shopping. Nobody's going to restaurants because you can't, quote unquote, social distance. Because the rioters are getting in your face while you eat outside. So, so far so good here, folks. I'm sorry we get a little passionate about this, but,
There you go again.
That's right. I'm getting a little passionate about the tourism in states that depend on tourism, which there's a lot of them. They'll lose revenue because nobody can go to these amusement parks because of the greatest pandemic of all times is upon us. I would still push that masks work, and so can social distancing, even if it doesn't. Because I must protect the negative narrative that I have put forth, which is a sleight of hand action, so you're not seeing what the other hand is doing, so that you're not going to see what I do next. And get ready, you will love it. Because while you're watching all this play out in the media, social media, and you're texting it to each other and emailing it around the world, I go to the court systems in my states of my compadres, the ones that think the way I do, and I subpoena their courts to allow for massive unsolicited ballots to be mailed out. And then I have these massive unsolicited mail out ballots sent to places that will be easy for my minions to go pick up. There are places like lobbies of apartment buildings, warehouses in the middle of nowhere, office buildings, as well as our party headquarters. Anywhere where my people can get to these boxes because they live there. Boxes of blank election ballots. I have these spread out all over, of course, throughout the areas that I'm dealing with, and no one is the wiser. And if I get caught, I start the truthification rumor that this is a false flag, and there's nothing to see here. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. That's right. Don't see me. That's right. I urge my minions to quickly retrieve them, to minimize suspicion, and bring them to an undisclosed location. And within my cities and districts, we open these ballots and start to fill them out and make sure that our presidential candidate is number one. Using the premise of a great pandemic, which is going to destroy all life in these great United States, I would once again subpoena the courts to allow for 7, 8, or even 12 days after election to receive ballots and allow them to be counted in the general election, because every vote must count. Yes, and we do this in September. Then we wait for election night. Because these states that allow ballots to show up after election night's tally are completed. And remember, all of these ballots have been accounted for as far as how many ballots are mailed out there. 30, 40 million ballots floating around with nobody's name on them, with no identification, with no required signature, just blank election ballots. Millions and millions of them all over the country, waiting to be filled out. And then on election night, I see my candidate is losing by hundreds of thousands of votes. Oh, I don't know, let's just say 139 of them. Just for some reason, that comes to mind. And miraculously, at 3 a.m. in the morning, Wednesday morning, there's a knock on the back door of the election office. The door is opened, and there is no one there but a box of new ballots that need to be counted. No one there to give them to you. No one there to sign for them. No one there to say, oh, I picked these up somewhere else. They're just there. Surprisingly, there will be just enough to boost my candidate over the top, but not so many as to cause suspicion. This will happen in every state as we need hundreds of thousands of ballots to miraculously appear. They shall. They'll be mailed in. So they'll be there for 3 days later, but that's okay. We've got 12. They'll be dropped off in boxes by the droves. That's just because we can have them there 4 or 5 days later. They will be harvested by poll workers and carried to the ballots, to the ballot box. They will be handed to individuals as they walk by to carry them in and drop them in the ballot box. The ballots will show up to make sure that my candidate wins over the other one. As the totals grow and grow, we will hope that our opposing opponent will just throw his hands in the air and say, "You win, I'm done. I can't take the stress anymore." No. They hope he concedes. We hope the American people will throw their arms up in dismay and say, "We've had enough. No more. I can't take it. We want it over with." Then, with this success, I will do this to make sure that this is the norm for all future elections. That's right. Any president that is not of the party that I choose, be ready for an onslaught of negative media, negative action, impeach, foreign intervention into our elections, whatever else I can come up with to defame you. No basis, just things to say to get you to not run. And once you've destroyed the American citizens' faith in our electoral process, you've literally destroyed the United States democracy. We then will know we have broken the will of the democracy of this country, and we shall rule forever as dictators. You know, as the great Ronald Reagan said, democracy is just one generation away from extinction. And making a mockery of our electoral process is one step. The step one on how to take over a country and destroy a government from within. Because it's true, it's not whether or not your vote counts. It's actually who's counting the votes that's important. Believe it or not.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
You know, sorry about that. When I see a video, actually, it was on a local news broadcast. They were reporting at the polls, and behind them there were two men in the extra colored whatever vests, safety vests inside, which is kind of funny. And they were standing there, and I've got software on my computers where I can actually zoom in on videos and actually expand, get pretty good and close. Now, these two gentlemen had these vests on that said poll workers, and they were standing over a box, and they picked up an envelope out of the box. They opened this envelope out of this box. They pulled it out, and I could just barely see the little marks on the ballot. And I said, barely see that from here. And they looked at it, and then they threw it in the garbage can. The garbage can was right next to them. It was one of them 50-galloners with a black garbage bag in it. They were opening up ballots, looking at them, and throwing them away. Looking up ballots, throwing them away. Ripping open ballots, and throwing them away. Was it a Donald Trump? I don't know. But it doesn't matter. You're opening up ballots, and you're throwing them away. That's in Pennsylvania, folks. It was going on. It was terrible. So in Pennsylvania, they also withheld observations of conservatives and Republican Party members from watching or counting of the ballots, made them stay 100 feet away, and then they got a court order, had to come closer, but they were still 25, 30 feet away. You can't see what's going on there, folks, because I was an elected official. I sat on a canvassing board. I know what it's like to rip open these envelopes and let people see what you're doing. And let the people see the ballot. I've been there. And anybody with a modicum of a brain cell in their brain might consider that what they were doing in Pennsylvania cheating. I've watched Veritas video of the throwing away of ballots, the changing of ballots, the creation of new ballots. This is the beginning of the destruction of our electoral process, folks. It's hard to say they're not doing it because it's on a video. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, a video must be worth trillions and trillions of words. So was there corruption and widespread voter fraud? Considering that the state of Nevada counted over 35,000 votes of people who no longer lived in the state of Nevada or who were dead, one would have to say yes. So the corruption and widespread voter fraud happened. That's how you defeat. And the only way that you can defeat a sitting incumbent president, through deceit, fraud, lying, cheating, and just plain bad politics. But wait, there's more. There's one problem that they didn't count on. There's just one big problem they couldn't count on, and that is the tenacity and ferocity of Donald J. Trump.
Let's get ready to rumble!
That one was a little loud, but that you get the idea. You don't get to be the executive of a multi-billion-dollar construction company, building some of the largest skyscrapers in the world and some of the most luxurious hotels in the world by sitting back and saying, okay, I give up. It doesn't happen. Prepare for a fight. You got it. It's already been stated that today that Donald J. Trump will seek the remedy of the court systems for the widespread fraud committed against the United States people. Folks, did you get it? Did you get that? The fraud was not against Donald J. Trump. This fraud was widespread and perpetrated against we, the people of the United States of America.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
No, I'm not saying that Donald J. Trump is the greatest man on earth, and don't get me wrong. What I am telling you is if one party can do this action, which they have, the other party will also do this action. The integrity and fairness of our future electoral process lies in the balance in this election now. Why do I say that? Because future elections will always be in question as to how this was done appropriately. All elections, midterms as well as general, will be in question forever. Forever. And it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, a Republican, Independent. Did your vote count? Was it tabulated correctly? What happened? For you see, in the 2016 election, Russian interference was what supposedly in the election. That was the case that they kept going on for years, 4 years. But this year it would be Democrat interference in our elections. Cheating and fraud. It's a violation and interference. What's sad is it's our own people. Our own citizens have cheated, lied about, and interfered with the integrity and the honesty of our elections. Ladies and gentlemen, this is truly a sad state of affairs. And personally, someone must go to jail. A lot of someones. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent. Whatever your party is, the powers that be in our country have decided, and they have proven it this year, they have totally decided that you are too stupid and you don't know how to vote. You're too stupid. Like Kamala Harris said, 18 to 25-year-olds, you're just stupid. Well, they've just told everybody in America, you're stupid and you don't know how to vote. We know what's best for you. As the highest elected official in this local county, I went to D.C. a couple of times, and to be realistic, folks, I represented over 500,000 voters, and I was blown off by several congressmen and senators as if to say, we don't have time to speak with you about your petty little garbage. Excuse me? I found most of their attitudes to be high and almighty and disgusting. But not all of them acted that way. No, but many did. So if you're going to destroy the last holdout of democracy in the world and turn it into a socialist government, this is how you start it. By using your insurance policy that you started to pay for 4 years ago. And you know what? Here's a neat little trick. The lamestream media was also in on it.
You can't handle the truth.
That's right. During the entire night of November 3rd, CNN, ABC, CBS, all those guys. Fox didn't do it, but the other ones did. The lamestream, I call them. Kept repeating the talking points. Don't worry. We will keep counting. What? Donald Trump is up 400,000 votes. Don't worry. We'll keep voting. They were as calm. They were as calm as a morning dew in a field of daffodils. They were calm and serene. President Trump is winning the state of Michigan. Don't worry. We'll keep counting. Oh, what's that mean? Donald Trump is up by 10%. Don't worry. We will keep counting. Why do you want to keep counting? Because as they found out at the end of Tuesday night, they needed 300, 400, 500,000 ballots to bring their candidate, Mr. Biden, up and over the president. They miraculously appeared. And isn't that interesting? I do not find it hard to believe it, ladies and gentlemen. And you shouldn't. You know, most of the information I've spoken about here that I've just given you, it's readily available on the internet. You can look it up. Videos don't lie. You can go through court records. You can get into court systems. You can check to see if your ballot registered. I had to go down to the election office because my mother voted and Mom passed away last year. We got to stop this stuff. You can go through newspaper reports, both video as well as print, and you can see the widespread corruption being done. Bold-faced. They're not even afraid to show it what's going on. They don't care because, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, nobody ever goes to jail for voter fraud. Let's make a change in that there, Mr. DOJ, FBI. Let's get this squared away because the integrity of this nation, the peace and well-being of our citizens is at stake. If we don't put somebody to jail today, this week, very soon before, and get this election fixed, then you have really lost the ability for the American citizens to even believe in government anymore. You will have destroyed the last democratic stronghold in the world. And if you don't believe me, just go ahead, look it up, and you'll find that I speak the truth. And you know what? All it took from me was just, I don't know, maybe just a little common sense.